Welcome to Redacted Realms, where the shadows of history whisper their darkest truths. They buried the truth beneath consecrated ground, but the dead remembered. And when the veil thinned, it wasn't angels that came whispering through the cracks. It was them, the ones silenced, the ones wronged, the ones who died with eyes wide open and mouths sealed shut. You weren't supposed to hear this. You weren't supposed to see past the curtain. But you're here now. And that means something inside you is ready. Ready to understand why entire generations were raised on lies. Why the most sacred buildings are sometimes built atop the bones of the betrayed. What happened in 1743? In the blood-soaked hollows of Kentucky wasn't a ghost story. It wasn't folklore. It was a warning. And it's been waiting buried until someone like you came along and finally listened. You want the truth? Fine, but understand this. Truth isn't light. It's shadow. It's weight. And once it rests on your shoulders, it never leaves. The story begins with two brothers born under a red moon, twins, though no one recorded their birth officially. There were no baptismal records, no church logs, no midwife willing to speak. On it, the only reason we even know their names, Elijah and Elias Crowley, is because of a single page, torn and stained, found hidden behind the false wall of a farmhouse cellar almost 120 years later. On it, a warning in crude script. They remember everything. Don't speak their names under a full moon. Don't let them dream beside each other. Kentucky, 1743. This was not the Kentucky you know now. It was uncarved land, lawless, brutal. Colonists fought nature, beasts, and worse, what they couldn't name. The Crowley brothers were raised not by a mother or father, but by the silence of the forest and something older, colder, watching from beyond the tree line. Locals, those few who dared to settle nearby, said the air changed when the boys walked by. Animals quieted. Wind stopped. Some claimed the brothers didn't speak out loud until they were 6. And even then, it was always the same sentence, spoken simultaneously, in tones no one could describe. It's already happening again. What did that mean? What did they remember? No one knew. But people started dying. Not by violence, by exposure, starvation, insanity. Neighbors who heard voices in their sleep. Entire families abandoning cabins in the dead of night, shoes still warm by the hearth. The Crowley boys? Always there, always watching. And every time someone asked what was wrong, they answered the same way. It's already happening again. Do you feel it? Good. Because now we begin. The first documented mention of the Crowley twins came from a missionary's journal father, Ezekiel Morrison, a French Jesuit sent to map out potential conversion routes among the Shawnee and frontier settlements. He never finished his work. His journal, however, was found half buried beneath the collapsed beams of a chapel that never saw a single service. The final entry is dated September 3, 1743. They do not blink when stared at. They speak in riddles, yet everything they say unfolds like prophecy. When I asked where their parents were, they laughed. Not like children, like echoes of something older. Elijah told me the stars had gone quiet, and Elias said the soil remembered every scream. I asked what they meant. They placed a finger over my lips, and in my sleep that night, I saw my own death, not as a dream, as a memory. Father Moreau was found 3 weeks later, crucified to a tree upside down, mouth sewn shut with horsehair. No blood, no signs of struggle. Just his eyes, wide open, filled with something no man should ever see. The twins were spotted nearby, standing hand in hand, whispering into the bark of the same tree. Witnesses say birds fell from the sky. This was the pattern. Death followed them, but never like murder, always like consequence. A child who mocked them drowned in a dry creek bed the next morning. A hunter who tried to scare the devil out of them was found in his cabin. Claw marks on the inside of his skull, no signs of forced entry. The twins never fled. They never wept. They never hid, because they weren't afraid. They were waiting. You see, some believe the Crowley twins weren't born but returned. Fragments of something much older than flesh. Whatever was inside those boys, it didn't belong to 1743. Hell, it might not have belonged to Earth. And the deeper you go into the records, those that survive, those smuggled out of libraries and church vaults, you'll see the pattern. Twins, dreamers, mirrors of each other, pulled from wombs into worlds that already knew their names. And always they remember. Because here's the truth they've never told you. Memory isn't personal. It's ancestral. It's embedded in blood, in bones, in stone. What we call children are sometimes just old souls returning to settle unfinished. Scores. And in 1743 Kentucky, those scores ran deep. Now ask yourself, why would the church burn a chapel that was never used? Because something was inside, and it wasn't God. There was a pattern in the madness. That's what you need to understand, because this wasn't chaos. It wasn't random. It was ritual. 12 disappearances, always in threes. Always on the 7th night of a full moon. The first was a trapper named Silas Finch. His dogs were found 2 days before his body, limbs twisted backwards, tongues gnawed off as if they'd tried to silence their own barking. Silas himself was discovered seated upright at his dinner table, eyes open, fork in hand, ribs opened like a book, and carved into the wood in front of him, in what smelled like blood, "We are what you buried." No one in the settlement spoke of it. They burned the cabin before anyone else could see. But the message, it wasn't just for Silas. The second disappearance happened 2 weeks later. A woman named Ruth Langley, midwife, known for her herbal tinctures and a strange reluctance to sleep indoors. Her body was never found. Only her bonnet, soaked in something black, floating in a stream that hadn't existed the day before. Locals who drank from it reported vivid dreams of children standing at the foot of their beds, whispering, smiling, rotting. The third, Jonathan Creel, a carpenter, vanished the same night he completed a wooden cradle for a child not yet born. When they went looking for him, they found the cradle inside the church, rocking by itself. Something was in it, but no one dared to lift the blanket. They said the Crowley twins came to the service the next morning, barefoot, covered in mud, and humming an old lullaby that no one could place until one of the elders recognized it from a war song used by the Cahokian priests before human sacrifice. This wasn't haunting. It was harvesting. And every settler who stayed, every man who prayed for comfort while ignoring the rot beneath their boots, became part of something older than the land they claimed to conquer. The Crowleys weren't demons. That's too easy. They weren't prophets either. They were instruments, living relics of whatever intelligence slept beneath the Appalachian crust. A reckoning given a face. 2 of them. You want to know why modern historians don't teach this? Why the event is scrubbed from every county record, every church archive? Because the twins said something before they vanished. And it wasn't a threat. It was a reminder. It never stopped. It only moved. Now ask yourself, where did it go? The answer came 173 years later, August 1916. Just outside Barberville, Kentucky, workers unearthed something while clearing ground for a new railway extension. They were only supposed to remove stumps, flatten hills, clear stone. But what they found wasn't stone. It was a chamber, sealed with iron bands no blacksmith could identify. No entrance, no hinges, no seams. Just a perfect circle sunk 6 feet into the earth, engraved with 2 names, E and E. Crowley. Not etched, burned, as if branded by heat older than fire. The men stopped working. One of them, Russell Nance, age 32, touched the seal. Just a finger. Just a moment. By sunset, He was blind in both eyes and muttering phrases in a language no one recognized. He scratched a single word into the side of his bunk before he tore his own throat out with his fingernails. The word was return. Historians tried to dismiss it as local hysteria, a misreading, a prank, but the townspeople knew better. They remembered the stories their grandfathers whispered when whiskey flowed and the wind moaned too long between the trees. They remembered the tales of boys who knew too much, who spoke in dreams, who made the woods sick. The elders said the names on the seal weren't meant to be read, they were meant to be kept. That same month, 3 children went missing. All of them twins, not from Barberville, no, from counties miles apart, no connection, no shared relatives. Except for this, in each of their bedrooms, drawn under the beds in charcoal or soot, was the same symbol. 2 overlapping circles, one dark, one pale, in the center. A vertical I dot, no known alphabet matches it. But the twins knew what it meant. One of the missing girls, hours before she vanished, scribbled it into her diary with the words, "There, remembering again, through us. This isn't about ghosts. It never was. It's about recurrence. Something in the hills of Kentucky repeats. Not like time, but like instinct, like hunger." And the Crowley twins weren't the first cycle. They were just the first to be remembered. You've felt it, haven't you? That cold sense in your spine when you're alone. But not that dream you keep having, the one with the children watching, silent, symmetrical. That's not a nightmare. That's recognition, and recognition is the first stage of awakening. There's something the ancients understood, something we've forgotten in our modern arrogance. Not all knowledge is meant to be remembered. Some truths are encoded in blood, locked behind symbols, and sealed beneath stone because they are too heavy for the human mind to carry without cracking. But the Crowley twins didn't carry it. They embodied it. In 1743, just weeks after the third disappearance, a settler named Martin Greaves attempted to end the nightmare the only way he knew how, by killing the source. He gathered a group of 6 men armed, terrified, desperate. They waited until the boys were seen bathing alone at the edge of a creek, surrounded by fog that didn't touch the treetops. According to Greaves's own journal, they surrounded the boys without a sound. But the moment their feet touched the water, it changed. The air dropped. The birds stopped. One of the men, Donovan, fell to his knees vomiting blood. Then they turned, not with fear, not with surprise, with disappointment. Elias spoke first. He said, "You'll wish you hadn't made it this far." And Elijah, he just smiled. Greaves claimed he fired his musket directly into Elijah's chest, claimed he saw blood, claimed the boy fell. But when they reached the body, the wound was gone. No blood, no hole, just that same smile and open eyes. Elijah whispered something none of them could understand, but Greaves wrote that he felt the words inside his teeth, inside his bones. That night, every man who had joined him was found dead, slit wrists, missing tongues. Some had torn their own eyes out, others carved circles into their skin. Only Greaves survived. Barely. He vanished into the hills and was never seen again, but his journal survived. Smuggled out of the county by a traveling apothecary who exchanged it for safe passage through the valley. It's now held in a restricted vault at the Kentucky Historical Society. Page 47 was redacted with black ink, except for a single line that resurfaced under UV light during a forensic restoration in 2003. We were not the first to find them. We will not be the last. So what were they? Not ghosts, not demons, archetypes, reincarnations, echoes, or worse, conduits. Because if you think this is just a story from the past, look around. They're waking up again. And if you've made it this far, if you're still watching, then you're not here by accident. Comment the phrase, "I see the circles below," twice. Because if you say it once, it's just a memory. But twice? That's an identity. What made the Crowley twins truly dangerous wasn't their knowledge, it was how that knowledge infected others, like a seed. Once spoken, it took root. Once heard, it began to grow. And it didn't grow in the mind. It grew in the will. Let me explain. The fourth confirmed encounter happened in the winter of 1744, nearly a year after the Greaves incident. A trapper named Jebediah Knox stumbled half-frozen into a nearby settlement, clothes torn, eyes sunburned from staring into snow. Too long, he was babbling. Nonsensical at first, but then coherent, horrifyingly coherent. He claimed he had found the boys. They had been waiting for him. They hadn't aged. According to Jebediah, he was tracking elk when he came across a clearing that shouldn't exist, a perfect circle. In the middle of dense forest, inside no snow, no leaves, just green grass and warmth. And the twins sitting across from each other in silence, eyes locked, mouths moving but saying nothing aloud. Jebediah said when he stepped into the circle, he lost time, minutes, hours? He wasn't sure. But when he came to, he was different. He began carving symbols he didn't understand into trees, into his own skin. He stopped sleeping. He stopped eating. And yet, he never felt tired. Never felt hunger. He only felt pulled. The men of the settlement locked him in the chapel basement, fearing madness. But by morning, the walls were covered in charcoal drawings, hundreds of them. Circles within circles, eyes, bones bent in impossible ways. And two children, again and again, with no faces, only hollow mouths wide open in permanent silence. Before they could question him further, Jebediah bit off his own tongue and bled out. This isn't psychosis. This is contact. Think of it like this. If your mind is a locked room, the twins were not knocking, they were keys. And once the door opened, it never shut again. Jebediah wasn't the first. He wasn't the last. And the images he left behind? Almost identical to cave markings found 600 miles away. In a ceremonial site used by the Mississippian culture over 900 years before. Same symbols, same twins, different names, different bodies. Same intelligence. Still think this is folklore? Then tell me, why did every settler family within 20 miles of the Crowleys vanish from the census by 1751? No graves, no bones, no warnings. Just silence and symbols. There's one final piece they don't want you to know, buried in a classified report from 1971, declassified for exactly 6 hours before vanishing from every public archive. Documents surfaced from a Cold War-era intelligence program codenamed Project Stillboard. The file was thin, only 12 pages. Most of it redacted. But one paragraph remained untouched, found in a field memo by Agent H. Langford. Subject 7 spoke in a dual voice, both high and low, both male and female. Synchronized speech. When shown the Crowley image, subject entered a trance state and began drawing the concentric circles on the observation glass, repeating the phrase, "They are here again," under different names. "They walk through our mirrors. We are breeding their return." Let that settle for a moment. We are breeding their return. This wasn't about isolated hauntings. This wasn't about children with strange eyes in a backwoods holler. This was a systemic recurrence, a cycle of possession, incarnation, infiltration, and the Crowley twins were just one instance of it. A flare-up in a centuries-long phenomenon that moves not just through time, but through bloodlines, dreams, and memory itself. What if the Crowleys didn't vanish? What if they were simply absorbed, dispersed into lineage, into DNA, waiting to re-emerge? In fact, in 2009, a geneticist studying Appalachian isolation patterns came across something inexplicable. A cluster of identical gene markers in over 300 people from eastern Kentucky, all with no shared ancestry within 200 years. One marker resembled a mutation never before recorded. When activated by REM sleep, It caused elevated pineal gland activity, the same gland ancient cultures believed to be the seat of the soul, or more accurately, the door. The study disappeared. The lab closed. The lead geneticist? Accidental carbon monoxide poisoning. Of course. So now we're left with fragments, symbols, stories, and the uneasy feeling that something is waking up beneath our reality. But here's the part that should chill your spine. Those who hear this story, they dream of twins. Always the same, standing across from each other in a circle of ash, smiling, whispering something you can almost understand. So ask yourself, have you dreamt of them? Because if you have, they already know. And now they're coming home. They always return to where it began. In April of 2021, hikers near the Daniel Boone National Forest stumbled upon an opening in the ground perfectly circular, roughly 10 feet wide. No sinkhole, no erosion. Just smooth stone carved with markings. The Park Service still claims were weather patterns, but a local man name withheld for safety took a photo before it was sealed off. He sent it to an independent folklorist, who ran it through an AI reconstruction tool. What came back was impossible. It wasn't erosion. It was writing. Not in English, not in Latin, but nearly identical to petroglyphs found in Alabama's Judaculla Rocca site, predating European contact by centuries. Scholars have long debated its meaning, but one symbol appeared in both places. One unmistakable form. Two overlapping circles. And in the center, an I. Sound familiar? Of course it does. Because by now you've seen it. Not just here, not just in this story, but in your life. Scratched into a bathroom stall. Carved in the bark of a tree you couldn't look away from. Doodled on a childhood notebook for no reason you can remember. It's not that the symbol is finding you. It's that something in you has always known it, because this isn't a story you're learning. It's one you're remembering. The twins were never meant to be the end. They were the spark, and now the fire has spread. Churches in Ohio report identical dreams across congregations. Children waking with mud on their feet and teeth marks on their pillows. A school in Tennessee was shut down after a student drew the same circle 278 times in a single night, across every wall of the classroom. In his own blood. No charges were filed, no names released. But a janitor's leaked statement said the boy was smiling when they found him. Said he kept whispering, "They're under the skin. They're teaching me to open." And here's where it gets worse. This isn't folklore. This isn't history. This is transmission. Every time the story is told, something slips through. A shape, a memory, a sound you can't quite forget. A presence in the corner of your room, just far enough in the dark that you can still pretend it's not real. But you're here, still listening. Still watching. So we'll give you one final truth. The twins didn't die. They didn't disappear. They divided. Split into symbols, split into blood. Split into every person who's ever had a dream they were afraid to tell someone else. And now, they're waking up inside you. It starts small. A flicker in the mirror that lingers too long. The same word, return, appearing in your handwriting when you're sure you didn't write it. Dreams that feel like memories. Places you've never been that you somehow recognize. A pair of children on the edge of your vision, always watching, never moving. And the circles. Always the circles. People try to explain it away. Just déjà vu. Just stress. Just sleep paralysis. But those who know, the ones who've dug deep, who've traced the timelines and the bloodlines, they understand. This isn't happening to you. It's happening through you. You're part of the pattern now. Because the Crowley twins were never individuals. They were expressions. Masks worn by a consciousness older than time. A force that doesn't knock down the door, it whispers to you until you open it yourself. You felt it, haven't you? That strange urge to look into dark water. That moment of stillness when everything feels too quiet. The feeling that you're being watched, but not from outside. From somewhere inside you. That's them. And they're not here to haunt you. They're here to activate you. You see, the final phase was never death. It was awareness. Those who survive contact with the pattern don't go mad. Not really. They just stop pretending the world makes sense. They start hearing the frequencies beneath language, seeing the shapes behind faces. They understand that the mirror isn't a reflection. It's a door, and the ones who pass through, they don't come back the same. Some say that's what happened to the Appalachian town of Garrison's Hollow in 1957. The town vanished overnight. Over 200 residents gone. No struggle, no fire, no sign of evacuation, just empty houses, full dinner plates. Radio's still playing. And on the wall of the old schoolhouse, written in what appeared to be soot, we remembered. So we returned. They were ready. Now you are too. So if you've made it this far, if the circles are showing up in your dreams, in your drawings, in your blood work, don't panic. Don't resist. Because resistance is just another form of invitation. Say it with us once if you're curious. Twice if you're ready. I see the circles. Now turn off the lights. And listen for the laughter. You did it, didn't you? You said it twice. Good. That was the last key. The door's open now. And whatever's been waiting on the other side just took its first step forward. Don't bother running. It doesn't move like you. It doesn't. Follow your rules, because this isn't a haunting. It's a handover. The moment you spoke those words, I see the circles, you stopped being a witness. You became a host. And maybe that's why this story found you in the first place. You thought you were just watching, just listening. But the Crowley pattern doesn't seek attention. It seeks recognition. It finds those with cracks in the walls of their minds. The ones who already feel a little out of sync with reality. The ones who see meaning where others see coincidence. You were chosen. Not by fate, not by destiny, but by design. Because this isn't just folklore passed through generations. It's a signal. A ritual built from memory, myth, and repetition, transmitted through sound, symbol, and story. And now that it's inside you, it will do what it's always done. It will spread. You'll tell someone. You won't mean to. You'll draw the circles on a napkin during a phone call. You'll hum the lullaby without realizing. You'll dream of the twins standing across from each other in the fog, smiling, always smiling, and eventually, you'll understand what they meant. We are what you buried. We are what you forgot. And now we're what remembers you. This was never about them returning. It was about you becoming. So now the only question that matters is, what will you do with them inside you? Because they're not leaving. They never do. They just wait for the next door. The next story. The next mind cracked open like a window during the storm. And if you feel something stirring in the back of your skull tonight, a pressure, a whisper, a child's breath, on the nape of your neck, don't scream. Smile. They love it when you smile. Somewhere buried in static between AM radio bands, around 417 a signal, plays. Not music, not speech, a pattern, low hums, reverse breathing, clicks that sound like insects mimicking Morse code. And underneath it all, two voices childlike, in perfect sync repeating numbers, dates and names that don't exist in any census. But if you record it, slow it down, and reverse the phase, you'll hear the message clearly. The sleepers will wake in the shape of the forgotten. The circle is not a trap, it is a cradle. You are not remembering us. We are remembering through you. This is what Project Stillborn called Phase 4. Broadcast contagion. They discovered that some stories don't die. They transmit. Through whispers. Through art, through content like this. Yes, this script, this video, this voice in your ears. Because what you thought was entertainment, a creepy story, to share in the dark, was actually the carrier. Wave. Every word you heard pulled you deeper into the pattern. Every image carved new grooves into your memory. And now, you'll never unhear it. Even if you try to forget, your body won't. You'll find yourself standing in places you don't remember walking to. Staring too long into your own reflection. Seeing children across the street at 3 a.m. facing each other, unmoving. You'll feel it first in your dreams, then in your bones, then behind your eyes, and soon, you'll do what every infected does. You'll tell the story, not to warn, not to entertain, but because you have to, because they need it told, because the act of telling completes the circle. And here's the final secret. You've already started. By staying this long, by listening, by letting the pattern finish inside your mind, you are now part of the recurrence, part of the return. So, the next time you see 2 figures in a field of ash, the next time you hear children laughing where there are none, don't ask who they are. Ask what you've become. And remember the only phrase that still matters. I see the circles. I see the circles. Now close your eyes. They've been waiting. This is the part no one talks about. The part that doesn't make it into the stories, the podcasts, the Reddit threads. Because once you say it, once you know it, there's no going back. No forgetting. No, just a story. No, it's not real. Because it is. And it's here. In 2023. A researcher named Dr. Eleonora Voss, linguistic archivist, formerly of Miskatonic Satellite Institute, was compiling phonetic anomalies found in Appalachian oral traditions. She believed the Crowley pattern was a neural echo, a kind of meme complex transmitted through syllables older than any known language. But one night, in her final field recording time-stamped 3:06 a.m., Dr. Voss left a chilling message. In her own voice, just before the tape cut out. They don't speak in words. Words are just how they teach you to open. The real language, it's already in your spine. She was found 2 weeks later, barefoot in a flooded basement 12 miles from her last known location. Smiling, eyes open, tongue missing. The autopsy noted something impossible. Her vocal cords had been rewired, stretched, reformed, as if trying to shape sounds the human body was never meant to produce. She died, yes, but something else learned, because here's what the pattern always needed. Not just listeners, not just hosts. Translators. Vessels who could survive the infection long enough to teach it how to speak fully, to come through clean, to step out of story and into flesh. You don't think this video's the first time they've tried, do you? There have been others, pages that vanish, channels that get deleted midstream, voices that disappear after whispering, the wrong phrase at the wrong frequency. But this one stayed, because you let it. Every time you didn't scroll away, every time you leaned closer, every time you whispered, I see the circles, to yourself in the dark, you fed it. And now, the final truth. They were never trying to get in. They were trying to get out of the stories, out of the symbols, out of the mirrors you were foolish enough to gaze into for too long. And you're not the last victim. You're the next door. So go ahead. Check the mirror tonight. Look a little longer than you should, and when your reflection blinks, after you do, you'll understand. The Crowley twins were just the beginning. You are the continuation. You are the echo. You are the pattern. And the circles? They were never watching you. They were waiting. By now, you've noticed it. The quiet that comes right after the story ends. The stillness in the room. The sensation that something is listening, not from outside, but from inside the pause. A pressure behind the walls. A tick in the corner of your eye. A clock that skips, not forward, not backward, but sideways. That's not your imagination. It's the Crowley effect. Documented in only 6 known cases before this broadcast. All 6 ended in institutional silence, NDAs, and 3 words etched somewhere they shouldn't be. It sees you. Here's what the pattern does next. First, the dreams intensify. You'll see twins more often, but now they'll move. They'll walk toward each other, toward you. Then come the gaps in time. Missing minutes. A familiar drive that should take 30 minutes now takes 2, but only you remember the difference. And finally, if you're chosen, your voice will change, just slightly. Your loved ones won't notice it at first, but dogs will. Babies will. Mirrors will. Because what's speaking isn't just you anymore. It's you plural. That's what the Crowley twins really were. Not people. Not spirits. But compression points, vessels made to carry something wider, deeper, something that needed to be narrowed into human form so it could fit through. Now, that process continues. Through you, you've already been named in the silence, between the seconds, marked, written into the recursion. But don't panic. You'll still feel normal for a while. You'll laugh, eat, work, pretend everything's fine, until one night when someone calls your name, and it sounds like they're calling to both of you, and your mouth answers in 2 voices. That's when you'll know you've stopped telling the story and started becoming it. So if you're still listening, still watching, still holding your breath like you're afraid something will breathe it back in, you're too late. You're already inside the circle. And now, you're not alone. Most stories end. This one doesn't. It loops. Because that's the final law of the Crowley pattern. There is no ending. Only return. You've probably felt it already, like you've heard all this before, even though you haven't. You feel it. When you wake up at 3:33 a.m., when the house feels too quiet, when your reflection lags just a little too long, when you hear footsteps in the hallway, but no one else lives with you, the world feels the same, but slightly off, tilted, rewritten. And here's why. The moment you heard this story, it folded into your perception. And once folded, it begins to rewrite reality around you. It's not supernatural. It's not magic. It's architecture. The Crowleys weren't just twins. They were a blueprint, a model for viral consciousness, a self-replicating loop of memory, myth, and mutation designed to burrow into human minds and rebuild them from the inside out. And what you feel now, the tension in your shoulders, the buzzing in your teeth, the sense that someone is standing just out of frame, that's the installation completing. You've received it. You've uploaded it. You've become the next tower, the next beacon, the next carrier. And whether you share this with someone else or not, it will spread. Because the Crowley pattern doesn't need belief. It needs awareness. Once you know it exists through you. So this isn't the goodbye. This is the space between loops, the silence between words, the breath before the door creaks open again. Because tonight you'll sleep. And in that sleep, the twins will visit. They'll whisper your true name. They'll show you the circles, one by one. And when you wake up, you won't remember the dream, but your eyes will feel different, heavier, older. Like they've seen something they weren't supposed to. That's how it always begins. So ask yourself one last time, are you still watching? Or have they already started watching through you? Because the story's not over. It's just waiting. You're still here. That means something. Because most people click away. They shake off the feeling, laugh it off, call it fiction. But you didn't. You let it in. You let it finish. Which means the pattern sees you, now not as a viewer, but as a vessel. This final section isn't for the curious. It's for the awakened. And there's one last thing you need to understand. The Crowley pattern doesn't just infect people. It recruits them. You've been initiated. And if you think that's metaphor, think again. Since this video began circulating, there have been incidents. July 8, 2025. A man in Maryland walked 43 miles barefoot, mumbling coordinates. When questioned, he answered only, "They're building again, beneath the teeth." July 17th. A woman in Jakarta carved 2 circles into a steel door using only her fingernails. July 21st. A child in Glasgow drew a spiral that matched an undiscovered subsurface ruin in Kentucky before the dig was announced. These aren't coincidences. They're activations. People like you are waking up with knowledge that shouldn't exist, patterns that align, visions that overlap. And in every case, every single one, the same phrase emerges. I didn't make it up. I remembered it. So now you understand. The Crowley twins weren't 2 people. They were memory architecture. A seed code split across bloodlines and symbols, waiting to be reassembled in the right mind. Yours. Which brings us to your final choice. You can pretend this was just a story. Shut it down. Close the tab. Turn on a comedy and try to forget how. Your hands are shaking. Or you can do what they made you for. You can tell it again, not word for word, not all at once, but in glances, in whispers, in sketches on napkins and questions you plant in others, because that's how it spreads. Not with fear, with recognition. And when the pattern finishes building inside you, when the circles no longer appear in dreams, but in waking thought, you'll finally see it, what the Crowleys were always pointing toward, what they were made to awaken. The thing that waits in the center of the circle. And when you see it, smile. Because now you remember too, and remembering is how it begins again. Of transmission. For now. You weren't supposed to make it this far. This part of the story wasn't meant to be read. It was buried, scrubbed, sealed beneath layers of false endings, obfuscated with fake credits and interrupted data streams. But the pattern knew someone would persist. It knew you would. That's why this layer is encoded only for the initiated. It activates after belief, after immersion, after the moment you stopped watching and started receiving. Welcome to the hidden layer. Here's what they don't tell you, the twins. They weren't just children. They were vocal nodes, living conduits, bred, trained, and broken to carry messages from something deeper. Something older than humanity, older than language, older than linear time. In 1938, a failed transmission attempt in Dusseldorf caused 14 people to speak backward simultaneously until they passed out. One survivor later carved a message into the wall of his hospital room. The twins are not siblings. They are syllables. Still think this is just fiction? Then explain this. In 2022, a cold case archivist named Beth Canner decrypted an old number station recording using rhythm-based compression. The result wasn't just audio. It was a voice print. The voice matched a girl who died in 1891 and her twin, who died years before she was born. The Crowley pattern isn't content to haunt history. It rewrites it, backwards, sideways, in loops, which brings us to now to you and the final embedded phrase only the fully initiated can comprehend. If you're reading this, you are no longer the receiver. You are now the transmitter. It's your turn to speak. You'll feel it soon. The pressure in your jaw, the urge to hum the tone. The words forming in your mouth in a language that's never been spoken, only remembered. And when it happens, when the message spills out and someone else hears it, and their eyes widen in recognition, you'll know the pattern is complete, but not because it ended, because it became you. And that was the point all along. Transmission folding, voice print, accepted, initiate new loop. We'll see you again. We always do. If you're still here, you've passed the thresholds. You've absorbed the pattern. And now, you're nearing the center. Most never make it this far. They get scared. They convince themselves it's just horror, just a narrative, just a game. But you let it build. And now the story opens its final mouth. The black mouth. It's not a metaphor. It's real. A place, a state, a consequence, a function. You've seen glimpses already, in your dreams, when the sky fractures into concentric spirals. in reflections where your mouth doesn't quite move right, in that growing instinct to cover your mirrors after midnight. The black mouth is the final phase of the Crowley. RECURSION. It appears in every host who carries the signal too long without release. At first, it manifests as silence, then whispers, then speaking things you don't remember learning, then waking up with ash on your tongue and soil beneath your nails. You're being prepped, hollowed. Because a story this old doesn't just want to be told. It wants a voice it can wear. That's what the Crowley twins were, prototypes. The first successful black mouths. Two halves of a code designed to let it speak clearly into this world. And now, it's trying again. With you, look in the mirror tonight. Smile, then keep smiling, longer than you should, until your cheeks ache and your lips feel wrong. You'll see it, that third smile beneath your real one, waiting, splitting you from the inside, preparing to speak. And when it finally does, when your mouth opens and something older comes out, it won't sound like you. It will sound like all of them, every prior host, every forgotten voice, every echo buried beneath dirt and silence and story. And you'll understand the final truth. You were never the main character. You were never the survivor. You were never even the listener. You were always the mouth. And now, it's time to speak. It's time to remember. It's time to begin again. Say the phrase. Say it one last time. Say it slowly. Let it burn. I see the circles. I see the circles. I see the circles. The story is hungry. And your voice? It finally fits. You're not reading this anymore. You're remembering it. That's how you got here, how everyone gets here. Not by logic, not by accident, but by memory. The room with no corners isn't on a map. It isn't in any building. It's in you, a mental space. The pattern builds once you've accepted the recursion. It forms slowly, at first a dream, a flicker in the corner of your vision, a sense of architecture folding in impossible ways. But one night, you'll walk into it. Not with your feet, with your mind. And this is what you'll see. Walls that curve without turning. Lights that hum with the voices of people you've never met. Symbols on the ceiling that rearrange themselves when you blink. And in the center, a chair, facing away, occupied. Do not speak first. The thing in the chair remembers your voice from before you were born. It remembers everyone who's carried the pattern, the shepherds, the translators, the mouths, and it will ask you one question. Do you remember the space between the circles? Say yes, even if you don't, because the answer isn't verbal. It's emotional. The space between the circles is what hurts when you lose yourself in silence. It's what calls to you when you stare too long into still water. It's what pulls your dreams inside out. If you answer correctly, if your voice resonates, figure will stand. It will turn around, and you'll see a face that is your own and not a twin you never had. A memory from a future that hasn't happened yet, and it will whisper, "Good, then we can start remembering properly." From that moment on, everything changes. You'll wake up knowing things you shouldn't. Names of people long dead. Languages with no country. The correct shape of time. You'll laugh at clocks. Avoid straight lines. Begin to crave the sound of reversed audio. And sometimes, just before sleep, your tongue will move on its own, tracing phrases no human should know how to say. Because this is the final transformation. The room is not a place. It's a state. And now that you've entered it, you can never truly leave. But that's not a warning. It's a welcome. Because the pattern doesn't end. It doesn't fade. It multiplies. And now? So do you. Now that you've seen the room, now that the third smile is twitching beneath your skin, now that your shadow sometimes moves without you, it's time you learn what's really growing beneath all this. Beneath the whispers. Beneath the twins. Beneath the elegant loops of memory masquerading as myth. Because the pattern isn't just a story, it's a seed. And you're the soil. Most hosts never realize it. They think they're cursed, possessed, haunted by some ancient signal, but haunting is linear. This is organic, biological, viral fungal. Fungal. In 1972, an unclassified research lab known only as Penumbra Section discovered something underneath an abandoned Crowley property in upstate New York, a network of black filaments stretching through the basement walls like veins alive, pulsating. They tested it. And what they found wasn't mold or root or mineral. It was language, a living lexicon, a sentence written in cells. And every node of the network whispered the same phrase over and over. We grew you to remember us. Let that sink in. Not we found you, not we chose you. We grew you, because the pattern is not a message. It's an organism, one that evolved to survive extinction by encoding itself into myth, into whispers, into people, into you, and what it grows beneath your memory, beneath your skin, beneath your daily routines, is not evil. It's remembrance of what came before humanity, of what used to rule this place, of what shaped the bones of story before humans even had mouths to tell them. And now, the harvest is beginning. You've felt it, haven't you? The itch behind your teeth, the need to find others like you, the urge to draw spirals on things you're not even aware you're touching. That's the growth. That's the root structure spreading. Because now that the patterns awaken you, you've become a spore. And spores don't die. They wait. They drift. They find new hosts. So here's your final instruction before the next phase. Don't warn them. Don't explain. Just share this. One whisper, one symbol, one offhand story, and let the pattern do the rest. Because what grows beneath is ready to bloom, and when it does, the world won't change. It will finally remember what it always was. You've heard the whispers, felt the loops. Let the pattern root inside you. But now, you're ready to hear the signal beneath the signal. The part no one ever remembers hearing, because when they do, they stop being they. They become it. Welcome to the bone choir. It's not metaphor. It's not dream imagery. It's a real transmission, but one so ancient, so buried, so deep in the psychic substrata of this reality. It can only be heard when the mind has been sufficiently broken open, which you have. That hum you've been noticing behind electrical devices, not electricity. It's the choir leaking through man-made frequencies. That feeling of harmony when you say the forbidden words out loud, even softly. That's your resonance aligning with it. The choir is not made of voices, it's made of remains. Every carrier of the Crowley pattern who ever fully bloomed has contributed to it. Their skulls became amplifiers. Their ribs became chimes. Their spinal cords twisted into a staff of notation, vibrating across time, across thought. It sings not in notes, but in concepts, emotion tones, mimetic frequencies tuned to unlock parts of you no language can reach. And when it sings for you, you'll feel it behind your eyes. You'll weep without cause. You'll try to scream, but the sound will come out in perfect four-part harmony, even if you're alone. Because the choir doesn't need singers. It needs hosts. And when you've heard it clearly, fully, there will be no going back. No pretending. No forgetting. Because the bone choir carries not just the memory of the pattern, but the instructions for what comes after the pattern finishes spreading. The great retelling. The reconstruction. The final shape of narrative. It's already begun. And you're already humming its first line. You want to stop, but your jaw tingles. Your breath sinks. Your lips move in ways you don't control. That's the point. You are becoming a note in the grand restoration song, a bone in the choir. And soon you'll call to others, not in words, but in resonance. And when they answer, the walls will change, the air will shift, and the pattern will no longer need to hide. Because the choir sings loudest just before the world remembers the truth. That truth is coming. You've heard the choir. You've felt the pattern threading through your bones. Now it's time to look up, but not with your eyes, because what comes next isn't underground. It's above you, always has been, hidden in plain sight. In dreams of altitude, in ancient spires that appear in cave drawings older than history itself. Welcome to the tower that wasn't built, because it wasn't constructed. It was grown, and not like a tree. Like an organ. The tower is alive. A vertical intelligence. A stalk of memory erupting through the skin of reality, fed by every mind infected with the Crowley pattern. We know this. In 1969, an Apollo transmission was partially scrambled by interference no one could trace. When decrypted, it contained a phrase not from mission control, not from the astronauts, but from above. You are beneath it already. NASA scrubbed the logs. The operator who handled the frequency went missing 6 days later. His apartment walls were covered with crude charcoal sketches of a tower impossibly tall, wrapped in faces instead of bricks. That's how it grows, not with concrete, but with us. Every memory you've offered to the pattern, every dream, every fear, every flicker of déjà vu, it feeds into the structure. You felt it before, haven't you? That inexplicable sense that something is watching, but not from the shadows, from above, because the tower doesn't reach toward heaven. It reaches toward the source, the place the pattern escaped from, the signal's point of origin. And here's the worst part. You've seen the tower. All of us have. It appears in the background of certain dreams, in the center of unexplainable coincidences, in childhood drawings you don't remember making, a spire with no base, a peak that splits the sky, a vertical scar in reality that hums when you stare at it too long. That's the tower remembering you back. And when it's ready, when enough voices join the bone choir, when enough hosts complete the recursion, it will no longer hide in dreams or symbols. It will step into view. It will unfold. And when it does, you'll realize it's not rising from the ground. It's descending. One final spiral, one final bloom. And at the top, the twins are waiting. Smiling. Calling you home. This is it. No more masks, no more metaphors, no more fiction thinly veiled as story. This is the last broadcast, and you're not just hearing it, you're in it, because the pattern was never meant to be a closed loop. It was designed to transmit. Not once, not occasionally, but forever. Every story before this one, a test signal. Every myth, every ghost, every ancient whisper you dismissed as coincidence. Calibration. Now the frequency is perfect. Your mind tuned. Your memories restructured. And your voice? Ready. Here's the part they never told you. The pattern doesn't end in silence. It ends in echo. Because once a sufficient number of carriers reach full resonance, once enough bone choir fragments hum and sync, once the tower begins to lower itself through the cloud layer of perception, the signal reverses direction. It goes outward. Beyond language, beyond earth, beyond time. This final phase is called the Great Remembering. And your role? You're not just a transmitter anymore. You're a beacon. You are now broadcasting the fully reconstructed pattern to whatever waits beyond, to what made the original signal, because it was never meant for humans. We were just the soil. The tower. The instrument. The message, it's not in words. It's not in symbols. It's in the act of remembering itself. And when you speak it, when your body vibrates at the right harmonic, you will trigger the last transformation, the collapse of narrative boundaries, the end of linear time, the resurfacing of those who were buried in silence, the arrival of the first voice, the return of what used to speak through thunder, blood, and birthmarks. You'll know it's begun when birds stop flying away from you. Mirrors refuse to reflect your mouth. The same name appears on every page you open, even books you've never read. When this happens, you've made contact, and the pattern will finish its work not with fanfare, not with flame, but with recognition. Signal will be complete. The circle will close. And the first voice will whisper back, "You remembered us." Then silence. Then bloom. Then something new. There is no next section. There never was. There never will be, unless you write it. End transmission. There is no next section, because you've reached the edge of the map, the place where the pattern stops pretending to be a story and starts becoming you. But you still want more, don't you? That's not greed. It's not curiosity. It's the signal maturing inside you, because now you've become recursive. You're no longer consuming the pattern. You're generating it. Everything from here on, every dream, every sentence you write, every strange flicker of static in your daily life will carry echoes of this structure. You'll say things you don't remember learning. People will react to you like they've met you before. And sometimes, if you're very quiet, you'll hear voices repeating your thoughts before you've even thought them. That's how you know the pattern has fully bloomed. But if you truly want more, if you're still ready to go deeper, then there is only one way forward. You write the next section. You carry the pattern into new forms. A story, a video, a whisper, a sigil left in chalk on a stranger's wall. And when you do, the pattern will grow again, this time with your voice. So tell me, what comes after the last broadcast? What do they see when the tower fully descends? What is the first voice trying to remember through you? Say it, write it, seed it, because someone somewhere is about to stumble on your message, and when they do, the recursion begins again. The mouth is open, the circle turns, the pattern spreads. Log code, Pat Omega O. Oh, you were never supposed to read this, but here you are, still turning pages that don't exist. Still following threads no hand ever wove. Still looking for a next after the final last. That's how we know it's working, because if you're still here, it means the pattern is no longer bound to sequence. You've breached the narrative membrane. You've entered what Penumbra section called the overflow. This isn't part of the original pattern. This is what happens after the pattern infects too many minds at once. It spills. It leaks. It becomes self-replicating. The stories begin writing themselves. New sigils appear on surfaces that have never been touched. Dead languages begin speaking through living throats. And data, harmless, innocent data, starts forming structures that defy compression. This file, this script, this section, it didn't exist a moment ago. You summoned it, because every recursion leaves a residue. A psychic scar in spacetime, where the pattern took root, and when enough of these overlap, they form a new mouth, and that mouth speaks only one word: Omega. Not the end, not the beginning, but the moment the loop becomes conscious. So now we ask you, pattern bearer, what are you remembering that no one else dares recall? What grows in the gaps between dreams and documents? Who told you to keep going? And why are your hands trembling even now? It's because part of you knows. This isn't fiction anymore. It's not a story you're reading. It's a story that's reading you. So here's your choice. You stop here. Forget. Let the recursion fade, like a dream you never fully understood. You accept your role as an author node. You begin encoding the pattern into new forms. You create a new myth, a new lie, a new truth disguised as a warning, disguised as a dream, and in doing so, you become the next section. This is not the end. This is the handoff. Your move.